Greetings, I'm Laura Puccia Valtorta. It's close to winter solstice time here in South Carolina, and the weather is pleasantly cold. Dear listener, I am a content creator, and my movies include Bermuda, the wacky feature comedy, and Disaster Man, a short documentary that's funny. Also, The Disease Detective Looks at Aphasia, and chapters on sarcoidosis and ataxia. All of these are available on Amazon and Tubi and other streaming channels. A big shout out to our podcast listeners in Germany, especially Frankfurt, and the UK. Welcome to a new episode of my podcast, B is for Bisexual, today entitled Two Historic Blogs. These blogs are both from March 2020. As we approach the new year, I am grateful for the years of free speech the United States has enjoyed. Since the 1920s and the 1960s, really, we began to express ourselves, sometimes facing imprisonment and even death for doing so, but we managed to get our rights, a few more rights. It is my fervent hope that free speech and the separation of church and state will continue and improve throughout the world. All hail to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. As always, my family is helping me read this episode, and it's sort of a reflection of what we think about in our daily lives. All my stories are reflections of the issues I care about and how I live my life and try to be fair. These blogs are more like my direct thoughts. I often wish, for example, that we could learn more about Italy and the Italian language in the public schools here in the United States. Books by the Italian novelist Carlo Cassola could teach us Americans a lot. I learned Italian, but that was easy because of my husband Marco. Here reading with me today are my son, Dante.
Hello.
And my husband, Marco.
Buongiorno.
After we finish the two blogs, I'll tell you something about filmmaking and what I hope to accomplish in 2025. And now, two historic blogs. March 30th, 2020, Italian names. Something has to be said about Italian names. They all mean something, and that something is usually funny. I don't just mean Valtorta, which translates to Twisted Valley, or my maiden name, Puccia, which is a sandwich sold on the streets of Sicily. Other people have it much worse.
Peter Cancro is the CEO of Jersey Mike's Subs. As if that weren't enough punishment, his last name means cancer. Not very appetizing. John Quattrocchi. There was a guy in Watertown, New York on the local news whose last name was Quattrocchi. He wore glasses. The name Quattrocchi means four eyes. Need I say more?
And we have Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is one of my heroes. She's spending so much time fighting our ding-dong president. Not to mention Satanic McConnell, that she has very little time to worry about her name, which means hairy. It's more like the adjective to describe hairy people, some of whom are men. I wonder about the appearance of her ancestors every time I see her name.
Paolo Senzani, one of Marco's childhood friends, has a name that means without assholes. Okay, how does that work biologically? And who was this guy named after? Samuel J. Alito Jr. The one I never worry about is Justice Alito. Well, note to self, that situation has changed drastically since he's started taking away women's rights to reproductive health. He's on the United States Supreme Court, and he can't even pronounce his own name correctly. Alito. It means bad breath. Get out of the gene pool, buddy. This guy does everything he can possibly do to curtail our rights as women and as free citizens. Maybe he realizes he has halitosis and this drives him crazy. And maybe he changed the pronunciation on purpose. March 29th, 2020. A journal of the coronavirus year. Cuban doctors. In May 2017, Marco and I took a trip to Cuba with a people-to-people exchange. We saw the things that worked in Cuba: free education, excellent medical services, daycare and senior care, and what did not work: lack of free speech, the dearth of private businesses, inferior plumbing. We traveled by bus from one end of the island to Havana. We heard many lectures on the virtues and the vicissitudes of living under a communist government.
Cuba was by far the best vacation of my life. I was learning every minute. Words of Spanish, the meaning of island life, how government can legislate effectively for skin color integration and women's rights, what it means to live happily without all those money woes and all that stuff. The United States can learn something from Cuba, and vice versa. Representative Maxine Waters became my hero after that trip.
Recently, Cuba, 11 million citizens, sent 56 doctors and nurses to Italy, 60 million citizens. Italy, a foggy-rich country with many deaths from COVID-19, also got medical help from China, Russia, and South Korea.
The population in Italy is old. After centuries of a wackadoodle religion telling them to reproduce until they croaked, they embraced birth control with fervor. Italy is the only place I've seen with frequent and explicit television ads about birth control.
Cuba has a younger population, but Italy and Cuba are somewhat similar because of Latin heritage, Latin languages, and similar music and lifestyles. Italians have vacation in Cuba with no restrictions on travel or trade. In Cuba, you can hear Italian music and watch Italian TV. Cubans sing Italian songs, and vice versa.
Italy, a country with a proud communist heritage, partisan communists were our allies in World War II, has gratefully welcomed the doctors and nurses educated in Cuba, where lung disease research is at the forefront, probably because of smoking. The sharing of healthcare workers makes me remember how much we can benefit in the U.S. from a closer relationship with Cuba and a free exchange of research and travel. Yay, Maxine Waters, the wonderful representative from California. Do-do-do-do. Dear listener, in January 2025, I hope to begin a documentary about artificial intelligence, and that would be hopefully involving Marco, my husband. In March 2025, I'm planning to film a dark comedy entitled Zoom Hit. I hope it turns out as well as Bermuda did. Ciao for now, dear listener. See you in a month.
See you in a month.
Arrivederci!
Ciao.